Hello and welcome back to another week of Good Guy Sports. Joined by myself, your host Blake Gerke, and Jackson Gerke and Mike Roby, per usual, joining us on this March edition of Good Guy Sports. We've got a couple different topics to discuss. We're in that period just before March Madness, a couple of things going on. We're gonna hit upon some big college basketball games, a little bit of NFL free agency talk as well coming up later, and a few other things as well to look forward to. But we got to start, Jackson, with I see you're wearing the hoodie. Me and you are
hmm
both based here in the Triangle, and it's tradition twice a year, once in Durham, once in Chapel Hill, the Tobacco Road rivalry game happening this Saturday between a powerhouse Duke Blue Devils basketball team coming in at 27-3 overall, 18-1 in the conference, and North Carolina. Undefeated at home at Cameron, by the way. The one loss to Clemson that was, a bit spotty there for Duke, and then North Carolina unranked, a bit of a unfamiliar territory for them. Still 20-11 overall, 13-6 in the conference. But this game is in Chapel Hill as well. The first game ended up being not overly competitive in at Cameron between Duke and UNC, kind of a coming out party for a lot of these Duke stars that we'll expect to see shine come ACC tournament time and March Madness as well. But obviously, whenever Duke travels to Chapel Hill, it's a big game, no matter the records, right? You know, two versus unranked. You like to say for these big rivalry games to throw out the records. It's a bit of a slugfest. But yeah, I think in this game in particular, you do have to factor in the context of kind of where these teams are, right? I mean, 20-11, 13-6 in the conference is not a bad record, but you have to factor it in the context of UNC basketball is used to being up there in terms of those blue bloods, right? So for their own expectations, they'll consider it not a very successful season, right? So they'll want to get one over on Duke for sure and kind of finish that regular season on a high. And then from a Duke perspective, obviously they've been up there with Auburn in that 1-2 spot all season competing. It looks like they're got a really good bonding here for that number one tournament overall seed for the regionals. So it looks like as long as they take care of business in the ACC tournament, they should be on track for that. And it's been a great year. You know, we've talked about Duke basketball quite a bit here on the podcast, and I mean, you have to say they've been worthy of that praise. Obviously, Cooper Flag has been pretty much lived up to the expectations, if not even more, in terms of what we thought we would see from him coming in, hyped freshman. Uh, you know, you hear a lot about these big name players coming into a big program, and sometimes they live up to it, and other times, it takes them a while to get started. And you have to say, Flag's been one of the most impressive first year players that we've seen in quite some time, and particularly going into a big program like Duke with the expectations that they have. He's certainly been living up to his billing for sure. But I mean, you have to say the roster that John Shire has assembled in Durham is probably the reason why Duke is in this great position, right? You got leadership, veteran experience. You've got players that have been at Duke for a couple of years. You've got some important grad transfer students as well. And obviously the first year players like Flag and Knipple that have really carried this team and been dynamic in many of these matchups here. So we got the game on Saturday in Chapel Hill at 6:30. Duke is going to be a heavy favorite away from home. Jackson, what do you think is the key to this game? In my opinion, I think Duke just has to treat it like any other game, take care of business, get Cooper Flag going early, not get caught up in it's going to be a hostile environment, right? UNC, the team is not quite what it was in previous years, but the fans are going to be up for the game and they're going to try to compensate for that, right? And try to make it a hostile road game for Duke, right? So that's kind of a big factor for Duke, right? Is kind of cutting out the noise and focusing on what they do best, right?
That's right. And as we all know, at the Dean E. Smith Center, it's going to be that's going to turn out to be a hostile environment, as we have at, as we all know. from playing in that kind of hostile environment. Just like you said, Blake, it's really just really really for Duke, just Cooper Flag and Isaiah Evans and Mason Gillis and those guys just yes, they will show up and they and really and then really John Shire's game plan will always find a way no matter if the no matter how close those games are as they usually turn out. It's a rivalry game where anything can happen and really and really the way this game turns out is that it's going to be one of those games that can go back and forth with so many lead changes that you just never know what's going to happen and again this will be a different UNC team if they if they play healthy for an entire for an entire game for each half then I think they could be then I think it's going to be tough tough to play against us, but at the same time, the Blue Devils of Duke will find a way to will find a way, even when it's in a tough environment, away from your fans at Cameron Indoor, and having to deal with the with the cloud with the loud environment. And I think and I think if you're Duke you gotta you gotta just stick with your game plan and really for Coach Cooper Davis, who I think on the flip side of this matchup is that you cannot play small ball and that you have to stay and you can't get in transition or just try to just try to just try to not do any costly turnovers and just really don't take too many mistakes because what usually tends to happen is that it's really really not a great thing for especially when you're playing against a very good talented Duke team that you really have to just really have momentum and just not really get killed or do too much things at once and so really really you just got to play slow and not do and just play the hard way and just don't make too any just try to be more aggressive with the ball and just don't make too many mistakes and if and then and then if that all happens then I think UNC will have a chance but for Duke um if they prevent and make more scoring chances and really and really find a way to get back in this game and just try to make it to a 70 score or 80 score or 90 score or 100 score or how the way you look at it, then if Duke finds a way to to prevent more scoring chances and really get in this thing without making too many mistakes, then I think Duke will then I think then I think the Blue Devils side for Duke will win this game and really the way and that's really how I look at it on the both sides of how this can really impact for both teams where for UNC you have a team that's on the bubble and if they win this game they could find themselves in the big dance for in the tournament but if they don't then they're probably going to be left out and that's really my theory of it Blake so for Duke we know that they are going to be a lock. Whether they win or lose, they'll still be in the tournament regardless. But for UNC, they have to win this game, or else they could be left out and watching the tournament from home on the couch. And that's just really my breakdown on how I see it for this matchup, Blake.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point as well. And I think, Mike, if we look at the latest bracketology,
Hmm.
projections from Joe Lenardi, who's obviously the bracketologist of choice here for many people, he's got North Carolina as one of the first four out. So you have to think that's a bit of extra motivation for them in this game to make a statement to the committee, right?
Well, all the pressure's on UNC. I think Duke can play loose because all the pressure is going to be on UNC. Jack's
Right.
right. If they don't win or play well against Duke, I mean they gotta win the ACC tournament to have a chance to get into the dance. But that said, UNC's on a 6 game winning streak right now, and they're hitting 40% from the 3 point line, which is awfully good. But when you look at the last 6 games that UNC's played, none of their opponents have a winning record.
It's been a weak year in the ACC, right?
The last time they played a team with a winning record, they lost to the Clemson by 20 points, and that was back on February 10th. So I think the key really to me is Duke stopping Lubin, and they stop him, and then you got UNC is one of the shortest teams in Division One. I think Duke can run on them, and long as Duke doesn't have any turnovers, I mean they should win fairly easily.
Yeah, for sure. I think that size battle is going to be definitely one to keep an eye on. We know Duke kind of likes to establish that roster, and sort of with a lot of their starting fives, they like to rotate it in, and the depth of the team has been one of the strengths. And when they got Malach in there, the big
Hmm.
the big center, he's kind of provided that rim presence. But a lot of times they'll play a different lineup where they have Flag at the five and go a bit smaller and try to run and gun. But like you said, if the height advantage is in Duke's favor, then you expect them to kind of play that bigger lineup a lot and try to win that battle on the rebounding glass for sure.
Hmm. On a slightly different topic, what do you think of Lucas heading to Miami to uh, coach the Canes next year?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, one of the top assistants from Duke, obviously heading down to South Beach to coach the Hurricanes. I think, it's kind of one of those things that as a top program in college basketball, you tend to deal with is a lot of your, coaches and top mind that end up getting poached. So it's yeah. I mean, I'm sure Coach Shire is definitely sad to see him go, but at the same time, he's probably been poached there from the Hurricanes for a reason. So I'm
Yeah, I
sure
mean
he'll do a good job.
he's fairly young. I mean, anybody's young compared to me, but he's what, 30, 36, 37. So,
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at the ACC rankings, the Miami can certainly use the help, right? Because they're
mhm.
they're currently in last place in the ACC, so they're looking to kind of rebuild that program as well. So yeah, no, certainly an interesting hire, and I'm sure Duke will miss him as well. But I think the college basketball right now is pretty cyclical in terms of player movement and coach
Yeah.
movement and assistant coach movement is similar as well. So.
Yeah, kudos to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You have to say, getting that head coaching gig, obviously Coach Shire is still a couple of years in, so that
Hmm.
the pathway to be that Duke coach is not going to be there for a while because Coach Shire's kind of got that unlocked. So for a career perspective, it's a good move from him for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jackson, looking ahead to sort of projecting the bracketology, we'll do a full show once the bracket comes out. Is it not this weekend, but I think
No, it's the 16th, a week from
16th.
Sunday.
So we got a bit of time, but if we look ahead to sort of the conference tournament week, a lot of teams are going to be trying to establish their cases for why they deserve to be in the tournament or why they deserve to be a higher seed. I think right now the projected number one seeds would be Duke, Auburn, Tennessee, and Houston. And obviously, that is subject to change given the tournaments and some of these last couple of games that we have going on here. But do you foresee that changing given the conference tournaments, or do those four Jackson seem like they're pretty much a lock for those number one seeds in the four respective regionals come March Madness?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, you look at Auburn, teams like Auburn, Florida, Houston, to name a few, are in that list. But
What about is there a case for St. John's maybe kind of being in that other conference? I know sometimes we don't like the overlap of the SEC is obviously kind of the dominant basketball conference right now, but I don't know. If St. John's wins the Big East tournament, finishes obviously with a good record, they're 26-4 right now. Is there a case for the Johnnies, Shaq?
it's possible. It's possible. It could happen. You just never know. I mean, St. John's is definitely a basketball powerhouse, as we all know, and I think those fans will be. I think those fans. I think that those fans, to me, to me, won't be as shocked because they have been in this position before. During this time of year, come tournament time, in the big dance. So for this March Madness tournament, and so really, St. John's being in the sixth seed currently, I think really, to me, one of the best teams in the Big East really has a shot, and I think I wouldn't be as surprised if they make an appearance in the come tournament time for for them to play in the tournament I wouldn't be as shocked, but yeah, St. John's tournament, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, I would definitely very well see them in the tournament from one of those spots.
Flipping that around, I know it's early, but do you see any potential Cinderellas out there?
Yeah, I mean I think honestly, my prediction would be given the strength of the SEC this year, I think we'll see a SEC team that's not uh, Auburn, Tennessee, or Florida, possibly even Alabama, go on a good run. I think a lot of SEC teams are possibly being undervalued. I'm thinking of the likes of a Kentucky, Texas A&M, Mississippi State are lower in the ranking just because their record's a bit poor because they've had a tougher schedule. So I think buy high on those lower seed SEC teams this year. So if you're looking at like those matchups come bracketology where you have the um like a like a 7-10 matchup or 8-9 or something like that, and you see an SEC team in there, I think those teams are going to be valuable because they've had a tough schedule this year, and it's the conference that's had the best amount of teams and the most tested amount of teams. So that's certainly one to keep an eye on. But in terms of those teams that I think it's tough to say, and I think after the because we know the way that the bracketology works is the lower tier conference to get the automatic bids for the tournament winners, right? And
Hmm.
I think timeline wise, the tournaments will be happening next week, I want to say, most of the conference tournaments. So we'll kind of have
Yeah.
an idea on the brackets in terms of some of those mid-major schools who
Hmm.
are going to come in. So yeah, to your point, Mike, once we see those teams that sneak
Yeah.
in, that will give us a good view. Thinking of like past couple years, we saw St. Peter's, I think, was one past couple years that knocked off some really good teams. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely, there's always going to be one, right? Some a smaller school that gets an upset. So yeah, I don't think this year will be any different than previous.
Yeah. Watch for the Memphis Tigers.
Okay.
And they're
Okay. They're always
they're having a good year.
yeah. They're always thereabouts, right? So they're
Head coach Penny Hardaway.
right. So they're in the American Conference, right? So
Yeah.
they've
Hmm.
um interesting. Yeah. So you can argue maybe their schedule isn't the best, but just from a talent
Well, yeah.
perspective,
I mean, they're, mid-level. So,
yeah, no, that's a good shout as well. Looking at the rankings here, I think Iowa State is a pretty dangerous team.
hmm.
Um, they've they've impressed me. I've seen a couple of their games this year, and the Big 12 is not a incredible conference right now, but just in terms of some of the names they have in there, I don't know. I feel like Houston always disappoints tournament time. I don't know why, but um, I feel like if we just look at the past couple of years that Houston has been a number one seed, number two seed, I just feel like they've always never really got it done. Maybe that's because of the Big 12 is not a particularly amazing conference right now. Like Texas Tech, Iowa State are both good teams and they've beaten those teams. So maybe I'm gonna, Kansas as well, obviously is there. They're not quite at that high level that we would expect Kansas to be perhaps, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm underselling the Big 12 this year and it might come back to bite me, but um I just feel like going through that gauntlet of a tough schedule is something that you can't really undervalue too much. So I think a Big Ten as well, a bit of a slump year for the Big Ten maybe. Jackson, if we're looking at kind of, from a conference perspective, the only team that I'm really that I would be confident about making any kind of run would be Michigan State. I don't
Hmm.
know. I mean, you got like the likes of Michigan, Wisconsin, Purdue that are kind of always, decent come tournament time, but
Yeah.
I think it's off year for them.
Yeah, and
Maryland's having a good year.
their
Yeah, yeah.
longest tenured coach ever, Tom Izzo, is still at it, going strong.
We say
And
one last run for old coach.
yeah, you say that, but he's still fit and healthy and
Right,
strong and
right.
still going at it despite his age getting old, even though he does act like he's still young, which is true, and still going at it. And
He
so,
still yells at the referees like he's young, huh?
oh yeah, you know it. And he definitely all about basketball, and and that's and that's really his DNA of the sport that he follows and what he's so passionate about. And that to me is just what he actually does for a living, which is really an average follower life of the sport, and that's just who he is. And so back to your point on the Big Ten, I look at teams like Illinois, who is by far the top 25 right now, the long one of the teams that has a long shot of getting in the tournament. Followed by followed by is followed by Oregon, Michigan, teams that are in the mix, Arizona, um, and quite a few teams in the ACC, which we haven't which we surprisingly haven't really seen much than what we've seen in previous years.
The ACC. Apart from Duke, I'm selling the ACC this year. I think Duke's going to be the only team that makes any kind of run this year. I think from the ACC.
And BYU is also one of those teams that to keep her eye on and to see if they can make a run in for this tournament, which I believe they can. St. Mary's we all know all about, but Kentucky, we know they're going to be in it. One of the top teams in the SEC. We know about Clemson, quite a few teams in their conference. Definitely not ACC heavy compared, like you said, Blake, compared to the previous seasons of making the tournament. And
What about Vanderbilt, Jack? You think my alumnus will have a good chance at making a run if they sneak in and as a lower seed?
well, only if they
20
win
and
their
10 overall.
yeah, well, only if they win
Win over
out the next
Tennessee.
two. Yeah, well,
Don't forget that.
Yes, I know.
This so-called bulletproof Tennessee Volunteers team. Just pointing it out.
So let's say if they win and beat Tennessee, and you went out and then you went out the SEC tournament,
We've got
and
wins against
there's a
Tennessee
possible
and
there's a
Kentucky this
poss
year.
well, right. Well, you went out and beat Tennessee, um, in the eight, and you went out the SEC tournament. There is a possibility of your team making it to the tournament, but if those scenarios don't happen, then I don't see it happening. It's really that simple.
One
So,
other thing to point out as well is the SEC tournament is in Nashville this year at the Bridgestone Arena. So there could be
right,
potential home court advantage there for the Commodores. Just something to point out as well, Jack.
that's true. That's true. But then again, if you beat Tennessee, if you beat Tennessee this weekend and you win out the
We're
tournament,
actually they're actually playing Georgia on
oh,
Saturday.
right. Well, right. What if you beat Georgia? Okay, well, so let's say if you beat Georgia,
Easy win,
you win
yeah.
out the tournament, then you make the then you're going to make the tournament, and
Then we just keep going.
you just keep going and try to make a tournament run. But
We get Duke versus Vanderbilt in the Final Four.
I don't know about that,
All
but
right, all right.
that's
Sorry.
I don't
I'll
want you to
slow
get
down. I'll
I
slow
don't want
down.
you to get ahead yourself there. But then again, if you beat Georgia, went out in the SEC tournament, and if you beat Georgia and you don't win out in the SEC tournament, then you're probably going to miss out and not make the big dance. Make the not make the NCAA tournament. That's just really how I see it for your team for many of those scenarios of how this is really going to play out. The way I look at it, and that's just usually how it goes, and that's just really how I see it in regards um to your basketball team that you pull for.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we got a good chance here to do something in the tournament. But like you said, there'll be a lot of implications given the conference tournaments coming up, SEC, ACC, Big Ten, whatever it is. So certainly a lot of updates to be coming over the next couple week or two as we get closer and closer to March Madness. So we'll be sure to give you all the updates and bracketology and all that. I think Joe Lunardi is a bracketologist, but I think we got three bracketologists here that are pretty strong as well on Good Guy Sports. So certainly we'll be covering the tournament extensively as we
I can throw darts as well as anybody.
absolutely. Mike's known for his upset pick in college football, and I don't doubt you'll come up with some absolute peaches of an upset come tournament time as well, I'm sure. So we'll all look forward to that. All right, I think
That's the beauty of it, right? And
yep,
I feel like in a tournament where anything can happen in March, just like the TV advertisements say, and
right.
you're right about that. March Madness should be very exciting once again, just like it was last season and last season, and no doubt that those games will always deliver one one way they look at it, and I just know that they're in it to win it, and knowing that's part of the passion and really of all the Cinderellas out there of how this is all going to turn out. You just never know what kind of game plan you're going to get for your team, and that's just the beauty of it. And you just never know. Sometimes those things happen, and you just got to be prepared for it. And that's just really what March Madness just give it just just give it to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll look forward to that throughout the month. No doubt, no doubt. All right, I think we're going to transition now to a bit of NFL offseason news. For those not aware, the NFL free agency period is beginning soon,
Yeah.
to be exact on the 12th, I believe. So
Next Wednesday, that's when the
next week.
season the 2025 season starts.
That's right. That's right. And even still, we've had a couple of trades and news and notes to cover. I guess we should probably start with Uncle Mike's Commanders, though, and a big deal that happened with Debo Samuel joining the
Yeah,
Commanders. Are you excited for that, Mike?
I am. I am. I mean, Peters, he drafted him when he was with the 49ers.
Right.
So he knows him.
Hmm.
And I mean, they got him cheap. I mean,
Yeah, it
just
was
a
a
fifth round
fifth
pick.
rounder. Wow, that's crazy.
Obviously, having a connection with him back in the days when he was drafted by the 49ers, with John Lynch is how they've all had this connection, like you said, Mike. And I think maybe that might have played a factor to it of how this trade deal got done. And that's
Mhm.
really one of the things why I think they made this trade possible to really is to really become enough is to really add another playmaker and try to become one of the best teams, probably not in the NFC, but maybe in the NFC East, along with the Philadelphia Eagles becoming as the defending champions, and just try to possibly maybe go toe to toe with them and really see how that's going to really play out for them. And then really on the flip side of this, for this trade, is that you just don't know what kind of Debo you're going to get. Will we get a example of that would be the 2021 version or 23 version of him, whether at times where he was healthy or not healthy as a player. And really, that's something that I think we're going to have to watch and see how this is going to play out um, for the season for him as a commander. But for that trade to happen, after being with the 49ers for Kyle Shannon for all these years, and I mean, I don't know how you really I mean, I didn't really think it was shock, but or just stunning, but the way I look at it, I mean, I know I talked about it before on the show before, and I didn't think Washington would really be getting a caliber player like that until they did. So until it actually happened, which it did happen. So now you just got to realize and just think, will this, I mean, most of the time you'll pass the ball and run the ball to Terry McLaurin, but the Debo Samuel, you're not going to catch or run the ball to him every single snap in the game. That's just not how. And you got to play. And really, the Commanders, they got to do better with their offensive line and on that side of the ball. And they just got to do a better job in that position and just really address that. And but your defense, you got to play defense most of the time to try to win championships and just really just try to make and just try to just make the plays whenever you can on every single snap. But yeah, but no, you're not gonna give Debo the ball every single time on every single snap. That's just not how it works in the NFL. But you're right, Mike. Debo to the Commanders, that that is just something that nobody saw coming. But yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure what to say about that, but it's definitely something that Dan Quinn can always rely on for what this football team is capable for. But
Yeah.
but you're right, Mike. That should be some quiet trade in addition for what this team just did for this offer for what they matched. But yeah, good for the Commanders and organization for getting this player, and I think they should be. I think any Commanders fan they talk to should be very proud for this trade, and I think they just might have found their guy, and I think that they will learn to see how great of a player he will become for this franchise this upcoming season.
Yeah. I mean, he gives him another target, gives Daniels another target to throw to because McLaren is still a tremendous receiver. But you're right. The offensive line is going to be the Achilles heels for the Commanders. Cosme is going to be out probably for the 2025 season. He went down with an ACL tear in the division game against the Lions. So they got to beef up that offensive line. But do you think the Eagles are going to sign both Milton Williams and Josh Sweet there, Jack?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't know if they will, but what I do know is that what I do know is that they have re-signed Saquon Barkley to a long-term contract deal
They gave him the
as far as
bucks.
what I know.
They gave him the
They've
money.
paid more millions of bucks for him for what he has to offer, but they but so far they but so far but so far that's something that they really want to just rely on for what Jeffrey Lurie and his football team really wants to do capable of for this offseason. And so really to me, I think to me for the Philadelphia Eagles that really
I mean, it's all about fitting it in with the cap, right? So,
yeah,
these teams that coming off a Super Bowl victory, you have to kind
right.
of
But you
pick
also but right
you got to
and
pick your battles, right?
right. And my point is that they have released Darius Slay to save more cap space whenever he gets released sometime post June 1st trade and really for him they wish him the best and had a great time winning the championship for this organization. So now my next move and destination should be the Detroit Lions or maybe the Chiefs or the Steelers, a possibility, or maybe the Rams 49ers or Bengals is a possibility for his um for his next team for his destination for his next move for a landing spot. And really I think that the Eagles with that cap space now you got to rely on building on the draft and just try to add some new players and a new roster of locker room group of guys for what Jalen Hurts can rely on. And I think that what they do should really still be one of the best teams in the NFC East, if not all of the NFC.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's going to become a bit of an arms race in the NFC East, and I think to Mike's point, adding Debo for a fifth round pick, it's just about getting as many quivers in Jaden Daniels' bow, as the expression goes. Once you know that you have that piece in place in terms of a franchise quarterback, it just becomes about maximizing the talent that you can put around him, particularly when he's on that rookie contract, right? Um, so they're going to be in a good position to add pieces. People want to come to DC to play with Jaden Daniels now that we know how much of an established player he is. And then from an Eagles perspective, you're right to say that it's going to become sort of a balancing of the books, right? In terms of uh, we once you reach that summit of a Super Bowl victory, people want to get paid, and obviously Saquon was, in relative terms, he was making peanuts last year, and so the fact that he got an extension is not surprising at all, given how great of a year he had and how much of a contributor he was to that Super Bowl victory. But yeah, at the same time, it's difficult in a salary cap sport like the NFL is to keep everyone happy. So it is virtually impossible to do that. So there will be some player movement and there will be guys that want to maximize their value. So it's impossible to keep everyone, which is why, the best GMs know how to maximize that budget, right? So certainly once we get into this free agency period next week, we'll start to see kind of how these deals shake out and how these top tier teams try to keep that core together, right? That's something to keep an eye on.
Who do you think is going to be the Steelers quarterback since Fields and Wilson are both free agents?
It's a really, really interesting question, and the crop of free agency quarterbacks is not exactly a a prime collection of talent. Obviously, that's maybe not something that unexpected. If you're a great quarterback and you play for a team, they're going to lock you down, right? So the fact that you're available means that there's some kind of flaw in your game, age, whatever it is. But I guess the options in terms of players that are available possibly would be the likes of Sam Darnold, Aaron
Mhm.
Rodgers, Justin Fields. I'm trying to think of other guys that might be available, but that's
Yeah.
kind of the main ones, right? So from a Pittsburgh Steelers perspective, I don't know. Would it be crazy for the Steelers to take a flyer on Aaron Rodgers?
I think that would be nuts. I wouldn't take it. Here's my scenario.
Okay.
So Russell Wilson signs with the Raiders. He'll be back with Pete Carroll.
Hmm.
And
Oh
that
wow, they can like
they
reunite
trade
from
with,
each other after all these years.
yeah,
After all these years
yeah.
spending time together with the Seahawks.
So they trade with the Saints. Saints keep Spencer Rattler as their quarterback and trade Derek Carr to the Steelers, and Derek Carr becomes the Steelers' new quarterback.
Hmm.
It's interesting. Are they improving that position that much though, going from Wilson and Fields to Derek Carr though, would be my question as a Steelers
Yeah,
fan, if I was a Steelers fan.
yeah.
But then I'd also ask, what else are we supposed to do, though, at the same time?
Hmm.
Because I think given the way the season ended, the fans would probably prefer something different to a Wilson and Fields combination.
Yeah.
So, is there a scenario where the Steelers kind of overpay for a Sam Darnold just because they want to contend this year and he's
Yeah.
maybe the best
That
option out there on the
that would
market?
be, I would think he's the best option out there, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be a tight market because you look at the draft, there's not a whole lot of quarterbacks in the draft per se. Certainly not like there was last year.
Right. It
I
seems like
mean,
it's either if you don't like Ace Cam Ward or Sanders, and even those two guys aren't necessarily
right,
locks, right?
right. And but you also have Brady Cook coming out of Missouri who had a really good showing at the combine. Um, I think he came in first for all any of the quarterbacks. So he may be a surprise pick for by someone, but that's pretty much it. So they're all gonna, I don't think they're gonna trade for Kirk Cousins.
No, and yeah, that situation in Atlanta will be interesting to see how that pans out for sure. I mean, it just comes down to how desperate your team is and how far away, if you get a quarterback, how far are you away from contending? And
Hmm.
you have to think about the GM's perspective. I think of a team like the Steelers or even the Giants, where you're thinking, if you're a GM, you're saying, well, I have to get somebody in the building now who's going to win, or otherwise I'm going to get fired. Like I
Yeah,
have to contend right away because that's what the timeline that we've set ourselves on. And the Steelers maybe are more like that because of the players they have. Other teams are kind of in rebuilding mode. Um, but I think also as well, it's something like the Steeler or the Raiders you mentioned, who just
hmm,
hired Pete Carroll, and seems like they're kind of trying to win right away. So obviously they got Tom Brady in their front office as well, who will probably want to get in a quarterback that he likes as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the teams that pick up these veteran quarterbacks will tell us how close they think they are to a Super Bowl.
yeah,
Because if a team picks up a Sam Darnold or an Aaron Rodgers, they think we're a good team and we can actually do something with this veteran quarterback versus a team that just says, we're not really I think we can compete right now, so we'll just punt on this year and draft a rookie or just go with some other, lower tier veteran at a low cost, right?
yeah. Is there anybody on the Panthers that the other teams can steal?
In terms of free agents, you mean?
Yeah,
I don't know. I think the Panthers this year will just be focusing on developing Bryce Young more, to be
yeah,
honest. I think it's going to be another, difficult season for them in terms of contention, but I think some of the signs that we saw from Bryce Young late last year, they're just kind of trying to build upon that, I would think.
Guys, guys, just for the record, this is not a Panthers jersey. This is a Carolina Royal Ravens jersey, the official Call of Duty professional team from Charlotte, North Carolina. So just to be clear, I'm representing a winning professional sports team right here,
I
not
think
the Panthers.
they had
wow.
double the wins of the Panthers last year, I
Hmm.
think, right? So
Probably. Oh,
How
Mike,
about
and you guys might
that?
have already talked about this, but you guys had a great pickup
Yeah,
The
with that
Commanders. Who did you guys
Debo.
get?
Debo, yeah.
Debo
Debo.
Debo
Samuel, yeah.
Wow.
Daniel.
Hey, it
Yeah.
looks like you guys are making a push right now.
Here
Just
we are.
saying.
We just need an offensive line.
So do
As they
we
say in Vegas, all in.
Yeah.
so we think from a draft perspective, that's what they'll try to address the line needs then?
Yeah, if they don't try to get some of the other free agents like Ronnie Stanley or Aaron Banks to beef up the line.
I think it's an exciting position to be in. A team that has a young quarterback with cap space as well, right?
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think I mean as a Commanders fan, you have to be really excited given this offseason how well Daniel's first season went,
Yeah.
and given that he's on a rookie contract and how much cap space you have to build around
Hmm.
him, right? So you can kind
Well,
of
it's
build
also
around that, right?
yeah, and it's also the new ownership.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
players want to come to Washington now. You look at the report card that just
Hmm.
came out. I mean, the Commanders really stepped up their game. I mean, the new ownership, Dan Quinn, uh, Jade Daniels, all of that combined. Yeah, there's a lot to be to like about the Commanders.
This Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle from Texas, keeps coming up as a potential pick
Hmm.
for you guys
Yep.
first, but all it's kind of all over the place. There's a CB, and a lot of people. This Matthew Gordon, wide receiver from Texas. So it looks like you
Hmm.
guys might go pull somebody from Texas. We just don't know if
Yeah.
it's going to be a wide receiver or an offensive line.
Yeah. Then you got Donovan Jackson, the
I
offensive
see
line
that too.
coming out of Ohio State.
Yep, I see that too.
Yeah, no, for
That's
sure.
exciting for you
It's
guys.
definitely an exciting time. It's crazy how much the fortunes of a team can change after 1 year. But
Yeah.
you get that pick right, particularly from the quarterback position, then you never really know what's going to happen in terms of building around it. So it's
Yeah.
exciting
The,
And
time
the
in DC.
602 baby, the
unlike un
602.
unlike RG3, we did not get him hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think shoring up the offensive line has to be a huge priority, given
Absolutely.
you know what you have now, right? So.
Yeah.
Wait,
Mike did
wait, you got lucky that time.
Mike did RG3 stay in Washington area? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he did or not. I think he's probably moved on by now,
Okay.
but
A lot of times when they play and the crowd likes them and the fan base likes them,
yeah.
they kind of tend to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had a cup of coffee in Baltimore for a few years there at the end as well. So yeah,
He
Oh,
did.
okay.
Yeah.
he might still be in in that area. Who knows? Yeah. Um, Other NFL news though, we have to address a high profile player requesting a trade in our beloved Seattle Seahawks. DK Metcalf looks like he might be on the way out of Seattle if he gets his way, which is unfortunate given how much of a a key player he's been up there in Seattle, but I suppose he thinks he can add value elsewhere in the NFL. But any potential landing spots for DK that we think might make sense? Ideally, a contender, right? We're thinking.
For me, a few options I would look at. Um, so so for me, a couple of tenders th that I have circled. The Chiefs, Steelers, um, may, are one of those teams. Maybe maybe the Vikings or the Pats or one of those teams are in perspective, but for me, but the two teams that I have my eye on are either the Steelers or the Chiefs. But
But why?
I'm going to
I don't.
go
Is DK that
slightly.
much
I'm going to
closer?
go slightly Chiefs for this one if I'm a betting person. But
I could see the Chiefs, Jack, but if he goes, is he that much closer to a Super Bowl if he goes to Pittsburgh than he is in Seattle? I don't really see that to be honest. Like I think Seattle's a better team than Pittsburgh if I'm being
I
totally
don't know.
honest.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but you could.
No, I'm just yeah, I'm just asking the question. You know, I think the Chiefs would make sense for sure as a landing spot. But at
I
this,
mean, I would look at a couple of teams to keep my eye on. Again, teams that are possibly a contender, I would look at again possibly Chiefs, um, Chiefs, Steelers, Bengals. Are my top three uh, on the list for DJ Metcalf. Now you play for the Bengals, you rely on Joe Burrow and for what this and for what this team has to offer. For the Steelers, you hopefully being part of the terrible towel tradition and really be part of the be part of the Steel Curtain franchise, and for what that is for one of the teams in the AFC North. And then the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl a couple of times with Patrick Mahomes and can see for this team and for the Chiefs could really be a team that you can rely on.
What about Buffalo
But Buffalo,
for Metcalf?
they are that could be a good landing spot for him. They're definitely one of the teams I have in the mix for him for Metcalf. And I say the Bills, Steelers, and Chiefs,
What about
um,
the Ravens?
Bengals. Not sure if the Ravens are on that list, but
Can they afford him, you think?
I guess you can
I don't
say
know.
Possibly.
they they can, but we'll have to see. But
Just give Jackson
I think
another target up there,
if he
and
wants to go to a team that can contend, I think maybe going to Buffalo, Kansas City, or possibly a Baltimore or even a Green Bay, maybe in the NFC. But I think maybe he would prefer to go to the AFC that way. He can go to a different conference maybe as well. So Buffalo or KC would make sense. But at the same time, the Seahawks are going to want a big return for him. What I'm seeing is that they want a first and a third round pick, which is a pretty hefty haul for a player. Would Buffalo and Kansas City want to give up that kind of capital is the question. A team that's more desperate, like a Vegas or New England, might be more willing to give up draft capital, but then he wouldn't be going to an immediate contender. So
yeah,
it's a bit of a balance, right?
but the
right.
Chiefs, so you look at they gave up a first round pick. I mean, they're going to pick later in the round, so their first round pick is not as valuable as some other teams. So
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
so
The
they
way,
might
Right,
yeah.
right.
they might be willing to give that up.
And then for me, for the Bengals, you can rely on Zach Taylor for his play calling duties and for what Joe Burrow and for what Jamar Chase and for really and then for really Chris Evans and Zach Moss and Jake Browning and really really T Higgins and those guys on that side of the ball they can rely on. And if you add him there on the write up for that side of the ball on the defensively, then I think it then that should be something you should be very excited about if you're a Bengals fan for him to be on this team. But if not, the Steelers same kind of thing. Although it's a different kind of tradition because they've won Towsley before, unlike what Cincinnati did. But the Steelers, Bills, definitely one of those teams to have our eye on. But with different cultures and different passions for what those franchises um really offer for what they do. So definitely keep our eye on Metcalf for his potential landing spot. But yes, lots to consider in regards to whatever choices he makes at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, I mean, you brought the Bengals as well, and but one thing that I think we should note as well, Bengals trying to obviously secure a deal to bring back T. Higgins, and obviously Jamar Chase to keep Joe Burrow, give his weapons happy. But I think it's interesting that the Bengals had one of the best offensive last year, but they weren't particularly close to contending, let alone making the playoffs, given the amount of points they scored. the team that did win the Super Bowl, that was the best all season, the Eagles, what was their strength? It was the line, the defensive line, the offensive line, and obviously they had pieces around. So I'm wondering if a lot of front offices and a lot of teams are thinking as we enter into this free agency period and draft is we want to have the right weapons in terms of running back and receiver, but if we don't have the line to complement that, then we're just buying the sports car without putting gas in it, to use that analogy, right? So I think having that foundation of an offensive and defensive front is really what you need to establish first, and having a quarterback as well. So it's easier said than done, obviously, but if you're going to buy, if you're going to spend draft capital, spend picks on these receivers and pieces, if you don't have, a strong core in that team, then you're really just, putting band-aids over it, right? And not actually addressing the issue with your team. So I think from a squad building perspective, that's
Mhm.
something to keep an eye on, in terms of this free agency period.
I agree.
Any other interesting sports topics you want to hit? We got a few minutes left here. I know as we're entering in the baseball season, we got MLS going, couple soccer games here and there, but as we get into the spring period, we got a couple different
Yeah.
sports going on. Anything anybody else wanted to discuss?
I just wanted to share, I saw a really great documentary on HBO called We Beat the Dream Team. It was about the 92 Dream Team, but the 92 selection team coming out of college
Oh,
beat the Dream Team in their first scrimmage. And the selection team had guys like Grant Hill, Bobby Hurley, Allen Houston, Anthony Edwards, Chris Webber, Penny Hardaway, and several others. But they just they took it to the Dream Team and they beat them by about 8 points. The documentary was all about that. It was very it was well done, fascinating. It was called "We Beat the Dream Team." If you get a chance to watch it, it's worthwhile.
very nice. Yeah, we'll check it out. Yeah, yeah. I know Cooper Flag was part of the scrimmage team for this past Olympics, and people
Mhm.
were gushing about his performance in that, kind of as a opportunity to test yourself against the best players in the world. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, definitely
Mhm.
worth one worth checking out for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we can wrap it up there if we don't have any other sports topics. Like I said earlier, you got
I
something, Jack?
Yeah, sorry.
That's fine.
I know that Blake was a little. I know that Blake BL Weinberger was a little late for the show, but I know we're very good on time, like you said. Even though we do have something to try to get to try to get something to get caught up with. But I wanted to share with our audience that we got a chance to meet with when I saw you in person, Blake, that we got a chance to meet with one of your star players for the Charlotte FC Football Club. If you can share with us with the audience very quickly, since we're short on time, about meeting him in person and what he was like. He was to me whenever I met him in
Christian
person
Colina,
that
goalkeeper, Charlotte FC, right,
yeah,
Jack?
so to me, he was very European. He's from Croatia and
He
definitely not American,
is.
but definitely a world culture. That's all I can say about him whenever I first saw him in person. Very nice, handsome guy overall, but in my impressions, very nice, handsome guy with a great family and really
You're
very
doing it all
special
for
player,
me,
very
man.
special leader for this club.
I don't even need to say anything, Jackson. That's actually why I was late. We just did a collaboration with the Call of Duty team, the Carolina Ravens. That's why we were late. We were filming some stuff with them. We had the Rookie of the Year in the Call of Duty League and the Goalie of the Year in the MLS side by side. So, Call of Duty did a skin with Messi and Mbappe last year. So we're hoping we might get some of the same treatment. But who knows? So it was fantastic, man. He loved meeting you guys. He actually gave you a shout out. He thought I was on the show when I came on the show today.
That's right. That's right. He did our Good Guy Sports Shorts video that that I just sent out to you and to us. And if you're able to and if you're able to watch it, just check it out. I think you'll be I think you're gonna like it and be very and impressed with what we're about to say.
Well, in Jackson, we had two Hall of Fame goalies in the room. Your dad and Christian Kalina. So cool experience, man. Good thing Blake knew soccer. He was able to speak that language, so it was a cool time, man. He said it was a pleasure to meet you.
Well, that's very nice of you, Blake. And I know that he was and I know that he was very happy and excited to see me. And I couldn't
Hey,
really thank him enough from what a special treat and what he really brought to us.
well, and real quick, I know we got to go, but the game, Hurricanes game that night, what a fantastic game because it went tied up, it went into overtime, and man, there were three fights in the third period. It was a little bit of the Canada from the Four Nations tournament. The Canada versus the U.S. Rivalry was still playing out in that Hurricanes game, and they won in a Aha, who's got every fun fact. Aha has every single overtime scoring sudden death goal this year for the Hurricanes. So a little fun fact for you on that one.
Wow. Well, the one that me and Parker and Johnson and Eddie Campbell went to, we did not see that and get the same result that you to the one that you went to it and no, it didn't go to overtime. It was a 2-1 Oilers victory, and I didn't see any of that, but the one that you went to did. So glad that you were able to have different experiences. When I went to one with both of our both with Parker's dad and my dad and I and Parker with Eddie and for kind of the fun experience that I had compared to what you had, but sounds like you had a great time. I know that I did, even though it wasn't the result that I was looking for. But yeah, I mean, you and I going to the Hurricanes game at different days, at different days of the same weekend. Nothing quite like it.
I love it, man. I love
Yep,
it.
absolutely. Yeah, and we'll check out Christian and Charlotte FC taking on Lionel Messi and Inter Miami this Sunday as well. So big
Should
game
be an
coming
easy
up.
win, Blake. That's a good point.
Uh,
Should be an easy win.
I mean, Messi's gonna have to do quite a lot to get past the brick wall that is Christian Colina. So absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think we are out of time here. So I want to thank Jackson, Mike Roby, and BL Blake Limburger for joining us on another great week of Good Guys Sports. Tune in next week. We'll be doing more talk about March Madness and all of our spring sports as we start to ramp up here on Good Guys Sports. So thanks everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye now.